can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sand. And right now, I feel like 100 grand.
You are listening to Inspired Insider with your host, Dr. Jeremy Weisz.
Dr. Jeremy Weisz here, founder of InspiredInsider.com, where I talk with inspirational entrepreneurs and leaders. Today is no different. I have Adrian Capobianco of BILI. You can check them out at becauseIloveit.com. And before I formally introduce you, Adrian, I always like to point out other episodes of the podcast people should check out. And, you know, some interesting interviews, some of my favorites. I'm curious, over the years, I like to have some of my favorite entrepreneurs, authors. I had Chris Voss of Never Split the Difference, ex-FBI hostage negotiator. Fantastic episode with that. I had Michael Gerber of the E-Myth. Vern Harnish of Scaling Up he started Entrepreneurs Organization. That was a great episode. Mike Michalowicz has several books out. Profit First, some of those. I don't know if you have any favorite books, Adrian, or resources. Do you have any favorites for you over the years from business perspective?
No, you know what? I'm more of instead of long form content, I'm more of a kind of a audio short form content. So I listen to about a dozen podcasts.
Which ones are your favorites in the business realm?
I'm kind of into the Scott Galloway and Kara Swisher. They have a bunch of them. They're good. They have an interesting.
He has some good books too. Scott Galloway has some good books. Yeah.
Yeah, they keep the content interesting. They have an interesting kind of personal dynamic that carries through to make the content a bit more interesting. And then just a ton of news sources every morning. My news feed at about a 1.3 speed for about 15, 20 different news sources every morning. So
I prefer the audio too because I listen like over 2 speeds so I can get more stuff done and do whatever I'm doing. But so check those out more on InspiredInsider.com. This episode is brought to you by Rise 25. At Rise 25, we help businesses give to and connect to their dream relationships and partnerships. How do we do that? We do that by helping you run your podcast. We're an easy button for a company to launch and run a podcast. So we do the accountability, the strategy, and the full execution behind the scenes. So Adrian, we call ourselves the magic elves that run in the background and make it look easy for the host and the company so they can create amazing content, amazing relationships, and most importantly, run their business. For me, the number one thing in my life is relationships. I'm always looking at ways to give to my best relationships. And I found no better way over the past decade to profile the people and the companies I most admire and share with the world what they're working on. So if you thought about podcasting, you definitely should. If you have questions, you can go to rise25.com or email us at support@rise25.com. I am super excited to introduce Adrian Capobianco. He's CEO and co-founder of BILI, BILI Social. It's becauseIloveit.com. And they're designed to help social media influencers and creators connect to and share and sell their favorite products. Okay. And they have a database over 20,000 social media influencers in North America. They reach over 400 million impressions. Maybe that number's updated by now. This is just what I read, Adrian. And they're very unique because they're a performance-based model. They're also platform agnostic, and they're really designed with specific, unique features that encourages sharing and mutual success from a brand side and also the influencer side, right? So, Adrian, thanks for joining me.
Thank you, Jeremy. Glad to be here.
So just talk for a second. There's a video portion I'm going to pull up becauseIloveit.com, but tell people a little bit more about BILI and what you do.
Great. Well, quite simply, our mission is to help make the connection between brands and social media influencers more efficient, more effective. At the end of the day, we want to help influencers and creators monetize their audiences and help them connect with brands to be able to do that. So, we've seen a change over the last number of years in North America. If you take a look at the most macro level, this number is kind of mind-boggling. But globally, social commerce, which is all transactions in social media, last year was about 1.3 trillion. That number is kind of a bit of a head scratcher. That includes ad dollars and social platforms, et cetera. in this year, it's estimated that influencers and creators, we use that name a bit interchangeably, but they'll help drive about $100 billion in sales. And while that number is quite large, we're just at the tip of the iceberg. That number is expected to grow 2 to 3x over the next 12 to 24 months. So we're going to see some massive changes in terms of how influencers and creators not only create content for brands and content for their audiences, but help sell products that they're interested in, sell products to their services, to their audiences. So we're about to see some massive changes, and really how we've set up this business is to be able to help our brand partners and our creative partners take advantage of these changes over the next few years.
You know, I feel like it has been really a rise of influencers. Like we've seen, even if we watch mainstream TV, they're celebrities now, and they're driving lots of sales, and it's really pretty amazing. I'm curious, what gave you the idea to start this company? Because when I look at a dual-sided marketplace, I always think this is difficult, right? Because it's like we have brands. I mean, then we have, the influencers. Obviously, the influencers helps with the traffic stuff, but it's still not easy. What gave you the idea?
So maybe I'll share a little bit of my background first, because that'll give a bit of context on why we started BILI. My background is former executive or CEO of a number of ad agencies. So spent about 20 years as CEO or executive in various advertising agencies. If you're familiar with the advertising space, there's a number of different areas. I've been lucky enough to very, very early on work in digital, along the way in the CRM, like the customer relationship management, the data side, the creative side, or the content creative, as well as the media side. And that agency experience, for 20 years, I've worked with influencers, creators, social content creators, for brands to be able to leverage that. The change that we're about to see is from influencers and creators as content to commerce. So really the inspiration for the business, and we've seen this trend already play out in Asia, and we could maybe talk about that as a separate track. But the inspiration of the idea for the business was really to help brands and help influencers kind of cross this bridge from content creators to democratize many retailers selling products and services, and leveraging a lot of that agency background, agency experience to build up our community, build up our platform, build up our partnerships. There's a bit of a longer answer on kind of the two-sided marketplace, and we can touch on that a little bit. But the actual core of the idea came up with my business partner and I, Howard. And Howard and I have known each other for 20 years, and as friends and business partners in a number of capacities. And really talking about the opportunity inspired from trends we've seen in Asia to enable influencers and creators in North America to be much more focused on the commerce side of what they do in social media. Does that make sense, Jeremy?
Yeah. What were you seeing as the trend in Asia? I was watching some interview. I think the background was the New York Stock Exchange or something. You know what I'm talking about? And I don't know if is that Howard? Was Howard with you at the time? It was someone was with you.
That wasn't. That was another gentleman. But
okay.
Yeah.
I'm curious what you see the trend in Asia, and I love this conversation because it's always interesting I always see, okay, there's a trend somewhere else, and when they bring it to the US, it blows up. Like if we take, I don't know, I always think of coconut water, right? Like it's normal in Brazil, and then some American was over there, was like, hey, we should bring this over to the US. Why aren't we doing this in the US? And brings that trend over. What are you seeing in Asia?
So the trend in Asia, and let's kind of back up a few years ago, was much more to this commerce side, right? So almost exclusively in North America in the last few years, it's much more been about influencers, creators creating content and sharing that on Instagram, sharing that on TikTok, sharing that on X, Threads, etc. What's happened, and the major difference in Asia, is that commerce has been built into the platforms, right? So the ability to transact is much more integrated right within the platforms, right within WeChat, right within Alipay, etc. And that's a very big difference that allows dollars to change. So the trend that is already a few years back is the actual transactions, much more transactions integrated within the social platforms, which we haven't yet seen at scale in North America. But we will very soon. So, from a business perspective, for some of our investor partners, for example, what they're pretty interested in is the trends they've seen. It's almost like being able to kind of back up the clock and invest 3, 4, 5 years earlier in Asia, but to do it in North America, because these commerce trends are now going to be applied in North America. As an example, I saw a chart. We spent quite a bit of time in Asia over the last year with our business partners, our investor partners, and we're in an interesting meeting just a couple of weeks ago in China, and they were sharing a chart. And the chart showed, this was up to the end of last year, so this was at the end of 2023. And the chart at the very top line showed traditional e-commerce. And as you'd expect, you'd see traditional e-commerce growing, growing, growing. And then about 18 months ago, taper, and last year actually drop off. And this is in GMV, gross market value, like the actual dollars transacted. At the bottom of this, you see a line coming up, and that's Douyin, which is TikTok in China. As you'd expect, you see that kind of growing. And the interesting thing is TikTok and commerce going on there, TikTok Shop, et cetera, get a lot of attention. So as I was saying, you see kind of this traditional e-commerce, right, tapering off and dropping a little bit. You see Douyin, which is TikTok scaling up, but it was a line that was double that, and that was peer-to-peer commerce inside of WeChat. So it's essentially like, imagine within chat groups, right? The actual transaction amongst individuals. These are groups no bigger than 500 people, and the dollars transacting peer-to-peer. It's like it's almost like having WhatsApp groups and selling, being an influencer within WhatsApp. That number was double Douyin, which blew me away. The peer-to-peer commerce. So not only some of the trends we're seeing are not only increasing dollars inside of like the major social platforms, but in peer-to-peer and smaller groups. And we're going to see this. We're going to see this open up in North America over the next 12 to 24 months.
So you have this idea. You see the trends that are going. What do you do first? Do you decide to raise money? What's the original idea? Because when I look at BILI, it seems like a robust platform. I mean, you can't wave a wand and that just appears out of nowhere. What was the first iteration?
Well, I mean, for anyone who's kind of built businesses, grown businesses, this is a bit me personally, but I do love kind of the idea to kind of take an idea, a vision, and then creating it. But really, it was creating that initial vision with my business partner Howard around the opportunity for social content and social commerce. So the step one was really kind of creating that vision that we thought was interesting, differentiated. The first step then really is kind of testing that, right? Testing that with folks who we trust, kind of saying, hey, we have an idea here. Is this crazy? Is it crazy enough? Does it make sense? Do you think there's an opportunity? And speaking to folks who, a number of different folks from a number of different areas who whose opinion we trust, who will, also challenge us a little bit. So kind of develop that strategy, test that strategy. And then, we found that with the folks who tested the strategy, it seemed to hold water, seemed to be interesting. And then you got to put that together, right? There's a bunch of different building blocks. Part of that was the fundraising. Part of that was the platform. Part of that was the community. Those are kind of three big areas that we focused on. From once the strategy was kind of baked, it was really kind of how do we either fund this ourselves or raise. How do we build the platform, and then how do we build the community? And I spent a lot of effort doing all three of those, and then a number of tangents behind those over the last year and a bit.
From the platform perspective, Adrian, I'm sure you've gotten a lot of feedback over the years on the platform. What are some things that you and the team have implemented inside the platform because of the feedback you were getting, maybe from the brands or maybe from the influencers?
Oh man, there's let me think. There's a ton. There's a ton of content or a ton of features, right? And what you're showing here on screen is is essentially kind of our marketing site. We also have a platform where creators come to and they build. I think the biggest, very early on, we wanted to focus on the social commerce side. So this, I kind of use the term social commerce and social content, right? The social commerce side we call BILI Base. The social content side we call BILI Boost. The market's still catching up in North America to the commerce side, so we've leaned more on BILI Boost over the last while. But at the end of the day, there's a whole bunch of different things that we build into the platform, and really what we're looking to do now, and kind of our next iteration, which will come over the next the next couple months, is what I'll call a reinvigoration of BILI Base. Right now on the platform we have maybe over 100 brands, a couple thousand products. As I said, we spent a lot of time in Asia over the last while. We want to be able to connect it to Asian manufacturers and brands who want access to North America, so that we have thousands of brands and manufacturers and hundreds of thousands of products in there to give creators and influencers an amazing breadth of products and services that they can offer to their fans and audiences.
I'm looking here, as you can see, we're on the brand section. What sticks out to me, Adrian, is this performance-based. Okay.
Yeah.
If I'm a brand, I love to hear those words. But it means, I don't know what the downside is for it. Maybe the influencers, only get paid when they sell something, but it's a win-win for both. Talk about some of the decisions there around the performance piece.
Yeah, so performance hits in two areas, right? So let's distinguish again kind of the BILI Base and the BILI Boost. So on the BILI Base side, if you're a brand, you're a small and medium brand, let's say, Jeremy, you and I have a company, we make these earbuds, right? We can put these earbuds into the BILI platform. If you and I sell these earbuds at retail, they sell for $100. You and I, as a manufacturer, as a major brand, we're probably getting about $40, $45 of that 100. On the BILI platform, you put in the BILI platform, and we decide how much we want to pay creators on that. Most brands will offer a commission of between 15 and 25% to creators, and on the BILI platform, we charge 9%. That means, as a manufacturer of these earbuds, we're now netting somewhere between 65 to 75% of that dollar versus 40 to 45. Now, we also need to ship direct to consumer one-to-one, but the economics become pretty interesting. So as a brand, who has, these earbuds, you and I, we don't need to pay to get access to the BILI platform, and we only pay when creators sell. So that is truly a pure performance basis. That's the BILI Base side. On the BILI Boost side, it's more about content, right? So, on the content side, it's more kind of typically an agency, like an ad agency type content. So let's say you and I, again, we're this earbud company, and we want to create awareness of our new earbuds that we've launched. We want to work with influencers because they're amazing channels. So, the brand would say, okay, there's a budget of XX dollars, and our team would put together a proposal for that brand. And that proposal would say, okay, we're going to find 10 creators who are very well qualified. This is a data-driven analysis, very well qualified and aligned with the earbud brand company. Those 10 creators over 4 weeks will create between 20 to 30 pieces of content. And as BILI, we have enough data analytics and experience behind that we will guarantee to that brand the actual number of views that content will garner on Instagram and TikTok. So that's a bit of there's a lot of analysis that goes behind that, but because of the way we use AI, because of our very close connection with our creator community, because of how closely we work with creators, include a lot of like I said, the data that we have behind that, we're able to say at the end of the day for that program for our earbud company, we will generate 20 million views against your target audience on Instagram and TikTok, and we will guarantee that. What that does for our brand partners is it removes some of the perceived risk of, okay, well, if I do this with influencers, what will it do, right? What will the outcome be? What will I get from it? And we're able to say, we guarantee that the content that we create will be seen by, like I said, it'll be 10 million, 20 million, whatever the number is, views of that content for this program for the budget you invest in it. As far as I've seen, we haven't seen any peers going that far in terms of guaranteeing the performance. Some will estimate and provide, benchmarks, we'll guarantee it for brand partners. So I'd like to say we're the only folks who are doing that. To be honest, I'm probably not right, but I haven't seen folks who are going that far. So does that make sense, Jeremy?
Yeah, from a brand perspective, obviously not all brands can join the platform and have the influencers promote their products. How do you vet the brands?
So interesting. So in terms of the brand side, on the BILI base side, as long as a brand is selling a product that's legal to sell online across North America, those products can go into the platform. Our team helps brands upload the products, get them into the platform. So as long as it's a product that's legal to sell, it can get in the platform, no problem. The question often is on the other side of that, and the question is, well, is it the right creators for that brand? So quite honestly, most of our auditing and vetting is on the creator side of the equation, much more so than on the brand side of the equation. So on that BILI base side, you touched on this, but right now, and even our site needs to be updated. But right now, in North America, there's an estimated 3 to 4 million creators or influencers. We can audit any influencer across North America. Our team, we have about 150 to 200 points of data that we audit on any creator and influencer. Often, we have more data on an influencer's audience than they do. We know, age skews, gender, location. This is on aggregate for their following, right? Location, ethnicity, interest, all that type of data. So we analyze all of that data. And we can analyze any of the few million creators across North America. On top of that, we've also, one of the things that we've built up, and we spend a lot of time building this, and we can talk about how we've done this, but we've built up a community of creators that's about 25,000 strong right now. So we have a community of creators in North America of tens of thousands of creators that allows us to activate very quickly for our brand partners. So on the BILI base side, right, where a brand puts the products in the platform and offers a commission to sell those products, brands often aren't so interested in assessing the creator. They just look at a creator as almost a salesperson, right, as an extension to their sales efforts. On the BILI Boost side, where creators are developing specific content, brands very much care about this. And what we do is, we will do full analysis on creators to make sure it's the best creator partner for a brand that we're working with. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Do you find do influencer agencies use your platform at all?
I'm sorry?
Do influencer agencies out there that are just trying to do this very manually, do they ever use your platform just for their clients, do you find?
They may. We'll work with various agency partners and enable them or support them, kind of behind the scenes or out front with clients. So we do collaborate. We work either directly with brands or with agency partners. For us, our mission of kind of making that connection more efficient and more effective is equally lived up to, whether we're working with agency partners or brand partners.
When I was researching your company, I immediately thought of NIL and sports has got to be big. Talk about that market for a second, and you can see here there's a page, obviously, about sports, but talk about that as a market for you.
Yeah, so specifically for NIL, if folks aren't familiar, NIL stands for name, image, and likeness, right? And over the last couple of years, that significantly changed so that amateur athletes can now benefit directly, i.e. earn directly from their own name, image, and likeness before they become pro. So that's been a bit of a sea change in the sports world over the last couple of years, a very, very interesting time. One of our strengths, one of our very strong capabilities is we are one of the leaders in North America of having an athlete creator community. So I'll build on that a little bit. Right now, on aggregate, we have access to, we give our brands direct access to almost 14,000 amateur, pro, and retired athletes across North America. And the reason we do this, or the way we're able to do this, is with some strategic partnerships. Actually, I'll give an example of one of those strategic partnerships, and maybe for your audience, this is a bit of a sneak peek because we haven't formally announced this. But yeah, right now we have a partnership with the NHL Alumni Association. So what the NHL alumni does is they endorse us to every former NHL player. This now gets us access to thousands of former pro hockey players across North America. We have the same partnership structure with the Canadian Football League, with their alumni. With their the CFL PA, the Players Association, with their union. So we've done these deals with sports organizations, and really the reason these deals make sense from their perspective is we help the athletes earn beyond their field or rink of play, right? Athletes are great, on the rink, on the field, on their field of play. We help them earn beyond that by bringing them revenue opportunities. So it makes sense for the CFL Football Union to work with us to help their players earn beyond. And what that means to brand partners, right? Like a brand that wants to get access to athletes is we provide very direct and very efficient access to amateur, pro, and retired athletes. So it's a very, very interesting space. The misconception it is often it's very expensive and too hard. So a lot of the attention, and this is indicative of influencers and creators overall, a lot of the attention goes to, the few percent of the few percent, right? So, the top athletes who are the best in the world, who are the most noticeable. But there's the whole base below that, which can connect with an audience in a very genuine way, who are very eager to work with brand partners, who can create great content, who connect and can speak in a genuine way about brand products or services. So we're able to provide direct access to potentially, thousands of athletes across North America. So there's a lot of interesting stuff going on there, and we're going to continue to build on that. Like I said, we're one of the leaders in connecting brands with amateur, pro, and retired athletes across North America. But we're kind of just getting started. And the next big wave of athletes that we're going to connect brands to is in the e-gaming side, esports, e-gaming. So we'll take our community of 14,000 amateur, pro, retired athletes, and we'll probably grow that 4 to 5x over the next year with gamers and esports.
I want to talk about one of the examples. I know you have an advisory board, and there's an example of someone on the advisory board who obviously uses the platform. But before we get into that, talk about how do you decide what type of people or position that you want on your advisory board?
Good question. So the type of folks we have an amazing advisory board. The folks that kind of shared on LinkedIn and that sort of stuff. Really honored to have some amazing people who are aligned and supporting what we're building. And it's really that, they have a view to helping us build. All our advisors are they're also investors in the business too. So they believe in the business and kind of vested in our mutual success. To answer your question, we're looking for people who are additive to what our own capabilities have of myself and Howard. We're looking to people who are interested in helping grow the business, so they're aligned and they're mutually incented to at the most strategic level as owners in the business, as part owners in the business to grow it. And we're looking, our advisors are not. It's not tactical and execution. Our advisors help us with strategic initiatives. So with each of our dozen advisors, we have 1 or 2 specific strategic initiatives that they support us with, and they help do that. And we're very lucky and honored to have some amazing folks who, if you think about kind of the space we're in, we have tech folks from ex YouTube, Twitter, Amazon, Google, ex Walmart, ex financial services, global CPG CEOs, pro athletes, very tech-oriented people, investment and finance-oriented people. If you take a look at our, advisory group, from a diversity of experience, you kind of get a sense that they cut a bunch of different areas, and that's amazingly valuable to us as we grow the business.
So I mentioned one of the sports advisors. Can you talk about how they
Yeah.
use the platform?
So gentleman, Enoch Mwamba, pro athletes have a career of about 2 to 3 years in North America. He's distinguished in that he has a 12-year pro football, NFL and CFL career. Just retired last year. Enoch's been on our advisory board for almost 2 years now, and has been instrumental in helping us develop some of these strategic partnerships we have in the sports space. In addition to being a very accomplished athlete, there's only 1 or 2 people ever get MVP and MVP in the same season, championship winner. But he's also very well spoken, very articulate. He has a very curious and entrepreneurial based mind. So yeah, he's amazing that he has great credibility in the sports space. But also very helpful and supportive of us on the business side as well. And Enoch's not only one of our advisors, but he's also a creator that has participated in programs for our brand partners. So he's great because he can speak very credibly to kind of the business side, but also as an athlete creator that's worked with our brand partners.
How has he used the platform?
So I'll give you an example of a program. There's a global sports streaming service. And this is obviously there's a global sports streaming service that wanted to promote the fact that in a region they had access to every single NFL game. So our pro athletes are obviously very critically, very aligned with this. So our proposal to that sports streaming client was, well, instead of just having anybody talk about the platform, why don't we have pro athletes who live and play the game talk about how they live and love the game and love your service to watch the game they love, right? As not only the players in the game, but also fans of the game. So Enoch was, although he's not a quarterback, he was a quarterback of that program. So Enoch was the lead in that program, and he pulled together 4 other pro athletes, and basically they made a team of content creators that over the course of 8 weeks created probably about 50 pieces of content that were shared on Instagram and TikTok, generated millions and millions of views across that content. And basically at the end of the day, helped drive subscriptions for this streaming client. So while Enoch's our advisor, he was a creator talent, and he held together the program every week, did content with the other players, and they produced and shared this content, and all the players earned from this program, talking about what they love to do anyways every day, which is play the game of football.
What type of brands are a good fit, Adrian? I was looking through. I mean, that's a streaming service. What are some other examples of types of brands?
Yeah, we've worked with brands, streaming, consumer packaged goods, auto, home, tech, fashion, apparel. The amount of content out there right now on social is so diverse that we could pretty much find a creator for anything. And I'll put a little caveat on that. Where it gets a bit hard is if we're talking about a B2B, a business to business product, right? If it's a very niche it's a B2B product, in traditional social media, TikTok, Instagram, etc., that's sometimes a bit tough to fit. If we're working within LinkedIn, that's much easier. But if you're a business to business product, using social creators maybe isn't the best fit. If you're a very regulated industry, pharma, depending on the financial services side, maybe not the best fit, unless you're talking about financial services education, for example, which could be a great fit. So very regulated or very B2B are sometimes a bit harder. Outside of that, we've had challenge. We've had briefs to get creators to show up in a small town of 1,500 people. If we can get 2 creators to show up in a town of 1,500 people, I say we can pretty much find a creator for anything. It is the beauty of the diversity of content that's out there, and the diversity of creators and niches, and finding the right people is you can pretty much find a creator that can speak in a genuine way to your brand for almost any product or service now.
No, I love this the conversation in general about influencers, because I feel like there's just so much leverage in this from a brand, from an influencer perspective, because they have this inborn audience, they share it, and it helps both parties. And it's probably less expensive from a customer or client acquisition side, like you were saying too. I know as a CEO founder, you're always thinking about growth, and you're like, yeah, I have like 15, 20 different growth initiatives. Can you talk about a few of your growth initiatives so people can kind of get inside your mind?
Yeah, well, let's back up to what you said kind of previously, right? It's in some sense we're in the middle of a triangle here, right? And that triangle is brands, creators, and consumers or audiences, right? So we need to accelerate across all three of those. So on the brand side, we continue to accelerate how we're reaching out and growing with our partnerships there to bring on new brand partners. On the creator side, we continue to grow our creator community. Like I said, right now our community is about 25,000, tens of thousands. And by the end of the year, that'll probably be 100,000 plus. So continue to grow that. We also want to continue to grow the breadth of products. So who's working with international partners to get access to global distributors and global partners who want to get access to the US and Canada through our network of creators. So we have strategic initiatives to accelerate on all three of those, growing our brand partnerships, growing our community of creators, and growing our value proposition for social shoppers and for audiences. And at the end of all of these, behind all of these, and you kind of touched it on already, and it's something we're quite proud of, but always continue to try to drive forward, is how do we bundle that all up? How do we put a bow around that with a performance-based perspective to make sure we are always delivering and over-delivering on value for our partners? And we don't say clients, we say brand partners. We don't say creators or influencers. We say our creator partners, because they're partners in our business, and we need to think about it that way. So how do we deliver performance to our partners? Because if we do that, they'll continue to work with us.
Adrian, I have one last question. Before I ask it, I just want to thanks for sharing your lessons, your journey. I want to tell people, if they haven't been looking at the video, they can check out becauseiloveit.com to learn more about what we're talking about and check out more episodes of the podcast. My last question is about mentors and business mentors, throughout your career that may have helped you, and maybe a good piece of advice that you got.
That's a good question. You know what? I think this is, you always got to think about what you do well and what you don't do well. I think earlier on in my career, I should have done much better at actively seeking out mentors. I always kind of, take learnings from folks, but I think in a more formal way. If you're someone much younger, and you don't even need to be younger at any point in your career, but when younger in my career, I think you get much more value from mentors, right? Because what a mentor can add, of the 10 things you're doing, in a day is, a 20-something, in any kind of career or work, a mentor can probably, of course, correct or optimize you on half of those. So I could have done better at having more formal mentors when I was younger. You mentioned our advisory board. I would consider every single person on our advisory board a mentor, and so I think that's an amazing source of mentorship, and mentors help kind of small things. I think that the value of mentors as you get farther in your career is maybe it's a tip, a suggestion, guidance once a month versus once a week, but the potential impact of that idea or that suggestion is much larger as you go farther in your career. So I think the way we've structured our advisory board, I consider every one of our advisors a personal business mentor. I would suggest and we've tried to not just kind of have just like an advisory board that's on a PowerPoint slide to try to make it look good, but to, like we said, actually have them as co-owners and investors in the business, so that everyone's in line. So I don't know if that.
No, I asked that because I figured this is really important to you because you have an advisory board, right? You have a group of mentors to help on various things in the business. What's one thing that sticks out? I know you've probably gotten a lot of advice and lessons from the advisory board. What's one that sticks out from one of the advisory board members that was helpful for you?
Sometimes it's just obvious stuff. Speaking with one of our advisors about this sports deal, this NHL deal that we're talking about, and there's just it seemed like kind of a smaller, obvious suggestion of as part of that deal, bringing in a few other pro players into our advisory board to expand that with a bit of a geographical kind of American focus, Canadian focus. And it was kind of a small, obvious thing, but at the end of this, it seemed like, yeah, absolutely. Why wouldn't we put that in? It costs, our partners on the other side nothing. It added value to us, and now brings people that are involved. So sometimes I find myself asking more often, saying like, this kind of makes sense to me, and I put it out there, with less kind of pride behind it. Say like, it makes sense in my head. If it doesn't in yours, tell me if it sounds full of crap or how I make it sound better. And I think acknowledging that that I could have done better earlier on in my career with mentors has probably been a bit of inspiration of kind of formalizing this advisory board now. And who I talk to most of our mentors at least twice a month. And of our dozen mentors, I'm talking to them. I'm talking to our mentors 5-6 times a week, saying, "Hey, what do you think of this? How about that?" They're making suggestions, they're making introductions. So it's really kind of it's on an ongoing basis. It's like I said, I don't say this kind of lightheartedly, but very honored to have a great group of folks who are supporting us.
No, I love that, putting it out there, and using, obviously not everyone has an advisory board, you do, but whether you have someone in your life that you could use as a sounding board, because I feel like sometimes I'm too close to it and it's, I'm not thinking of a million different things. I just need to put it out there and say, what do you think? And I'm always amazed when I do that of all the different perspectives and ideas I get when I thought everything through. And I'm like, no, I'm not even close. So thank you for sharing that. And thanks for...
Jeremy, you hit the nail on the head too, right? Sometimes we're too close to it, right? Like, it makes sense. We're too close to it. And we've kind of already arrived at the conclusion where maybe we need to back up and explain the question first, right? So it's that like kind of outside, be a little bit outside voice that can be very valuable.
Totally. I want to encourage people to check out becauseilove.com, more episodes of the podcast. We'll see everyone next time. And Adrian, thanks so much.
Jeremy, thank you very much, and have a great day.
What I got, you can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sailing right now. I'm feeling like $100 grand.